Sometime back, I made a video on how to build wealth and achieve financial freedom. And I gave 5 tips in that video on how to go about doing that. So you should be able to see those 5 tips somewhere on your screen right now. Since then, I've now been making some detailed videos in a 5-part series that elaborates these 5 points a little more for your sake. So as the first part, we talk about how to set financial goals, and if you've missed that, please go check that video out first. Today is the second of this 5-part series in which we're going to talk about how to set a budget and stick to it. Now, setting a budget typically is, I think, a very easy thing to do. It's just putting pen to paper and deciding what or how you're going to control your monthly expenses. Now, the difficult thing is to follow that though. That's where we start to lose sight. That's where most of the time a budget does not work because it's very difficult to follow what we've set for ourselves. In most cases, in my experience, what I've learned is that there are a couple of reasons why it is very difficult. One is, if you're setting a budget, you know that you're making a sacrifice. And if you know that you're making a sacrifice, but you don't know what you're making the sacrifice for, then it becomes very difficult to convince and justify that sacrifice, right? So that's one of the things. And the other piece is that we usually want more than what we can have. We usually want or crave those things that cost more, some things that we can't even afford right now, and then go on and take loan or borrow money just to be able to buy that. These are a few things in my experience that typically make it very difficult to follow a budget. But what does help definitely is to have a goal. If you've got a goal in mind, then you know that you're not just sacrificing for nothing. You know that by sacrificing something now, I am going to get to a certain goal that I've set for myself. So having an end goal definitely helps. Now, how do you set a goal, or how do you set a budget rather for yourself? The rule I'm going to talk about is called 50-30-20. Okay, and as the name suggests, it means that whatever is your income, your monthly income, you need to divide that into 3 parts: 50%, 30%, and 20%. Now, what do you do with the 50%? You use the 50% for your needs, you use the 30% for your wants, and you use the remaining 20% to save or invest. What are needs? Needs where you will spend 50% of your income are things like your food, the place you stay, your house. So those are your needs. Your wants. Wants are typically things that you can do without. You can live without them, but then you still desire to have them. Much like entertainment, let's call it that. So there could be multiple things that fall in entertainment, such as you like to go on vacations, or you like to party, or you like to eat out once in a while. These are things that you can do without. You don't have to have them in order to lead a happy life, but it definitely is something that you desire. So those are your wants. And the 20% is save and invest. That's a simple, straightforward thing, of course. So here, if you can see on the screen, I have created a simple Excel just to show you how simple it is to create a budget, right? And in this example, I've taken a monthly income of 30,000 rupees. So if you're making 30,000 rupees per month, what is it that you will set aside for each of these categories that we just discussed? Okay, and the tables below here will show you what I'm talking about. So the first table here is the rule of 50-30-20 that we talked about. So the 50% of your income goes into your needs, and if you're earning 30,000, then that comes up to 15,000 rupees. So 15,000 rupees per month need to go to your needs. Okay, now I can also give you an additional tip here. that from that 50%, how much should you spend on your house or your rent. But let's look at what your needs are before that. So your needs could be like we discussed, it could be your house, the rent you're paying. Do not buy a house. I'll talk about that in a minute. Well, don't buy it yet, of course, not at this stage. But rent, how much you need to pay. Then you have your food, so your monthly groceries, basic things that these days you have to have, which is you pay for your phone, which is your phone bill, your electricity, and your internet. There could be other bills that you can add, which is a necessary thing for you per month, and so you can add that to the list here. So 15,000, which is 50% of your income, to go towards your need. And I'd also go on and give you this tip about the house and the rent, is that 30% of your income should actually go towards your house or your rent, which means in this case, if you're earning 30,000 rupees per month, then you should be spending about 9,000 rupees on your rent. So 9,000 out of that 15,000 goes towards rent, which means you're left with another 6,000, which you can then utilize for all your other basic needs: your food, phone, electricity, internet, and any other bill. Now, it really depends from person to person how much you want to spend, but just be aware of the total amount that you can spend on that. So that takes care of your needs. Now, for your wants, like we discussed, 30% of your income should go under this category, which adds up to about 9,000. Now again, I have not set aside a specific amount for each of these because maybe some of these are important to you. Maybe you don't even have this or any of these on your list. Maybe you have a totally different list. It really depends on you. But some of the common ones that we know is that we want to party, we would like to eat out or order food. Sometimes we want to buy a new phone. We want to buy new clothes. We want to take a vacation. So these are things that you want on top. You don't really need them, but you want them. These are nice to have things. And of course, you see everybody around you doing it these days. So you would feel really left out if you, let's say, don't go to a party, or you have, don't go on vacations. So these are your wants. Remember that if you're setting aside 30%, this amount then adds up to 9,000. Again, this is with an example of 30,000 income every month. All you have to do is, if you change this 30 to whatever is your income, the percentages should tell you how much you can allot. And then finally, saving and investing, 20%, which means 6,000 rupees should go into saving or investing. In fact, I would say invest and not save, because if you've got 6,000 set aside every month, don't put it in a savings account. I would even say don't put it in a recurring deposit or a fixed deposit. Invest it in stock market, invest it in mutual funds, whatever you're comfortable with. And I will talk about investing and how to do that smartly in my next video, which is investing for the long term. But whatever your amount you're setting aside in this category, you need to invest that. Okay. Now I'll talk a little bit more on some of these because it really depends on what your situation is. You probably are maybe earning more than 30,000. And that's a great thing. So if you're earning 50,000, just go ahead and change that, and you'll see all these numbers changing to reflect how much you can afford in each of these categories. Going back to 30,000. But the other thing is, you probably have been earning for some time already, and you have a certain lifestyle that you're leading. And so how are you then going to come back to this? That's something that I'm going to talk about very briefly. Some of the big items here will be the house, right? Do not buy a house, as I was saying, because if you look back on the first video of setting goal that I talked about, in that you will see that we talked about what specific goal I want, and then how long am I giving myself. So in that video, if you go back and see, we are giving ourselves 10 years to build wealth, right? So in 10 years, we're gonna build enough wealth to be able to afford a house with our own money. So if that's the case, if in 10 years I'm going to do that, then why take a loan for 20, 30 years now and get caught up with that loan for the next 20, 30 years of my life? It just doesn't make sense, right? So do not buy a house is what I'd recommend. Now, in some cases, let's say you're at 30,000 rupees and probably you've already gone out and bought a house. Yeah, because, you know, growing up, that's one of the things that our parents look at. You know, all our relatives and our neighbors. If you buy a house, it means that you're doing really well in life. And so we go out of our way to try and accumulate some money, maybe ask our parents or relatives and get some money for down payment, and then go take that home loan and buy a nice house. If you've done that, then I'm going to tell you something very controversial next, which is go sell that house. Sell that house, take that money, pay off your loan. I'm sure you'll be left with some money on top after paying off the loan. So after selling that house, pay off the loan, and whatever money you get, you invest it. Keep it in an investment, mutual fund, the stock market, whatever you're comfortable with. Again, we'll talk about that in the next video, but sell the house if you've already bought one for yourself. This may mean a little, counterintuitive. It may mean that, hey, that means I'm going to downgrade. I've gotten a house of my own, and now you want me to sell that and move into a rented place? Yes. Because remember, that is not your house yet. You're still paying a loan on that house. You're paying EMIs on that house. So that's not your house yet. So there's no harm selling it. And you're selling this now because in 10 years time, you will be able to afford a house on your own money. So if you've got a house, if you've bought it, sell it. The other thing that people struggle with is, hey, 9,000 isn't enough. I want to, even if I rent a house, I want to live in a nice society, a good apartment, and have some security around me, maybe a gated community. 9,000 is definitely not enough for me to afford something like that. And that's totally fine. So nowadays there is a trend, that a group of people, maybe friends or colleagues or, people that get together and rent a house together and split the rent among themselves. This means that they don't have to pay that entire amount, but then because they are splitting the rent, they can afford to stay in fancy houses, in fancy societies that are gated. Some people I've seen live in villas. So a group of 5-6 friends get together, get a 3 BHK, 4 BHK villa and split the rent. And so the rent probably works out to something like this. If you have thought of this idea, you can imagine a 9,000 rupee rent can actually get you a pretty decent house if you're willing to stay with someone and split the rent. So make sure that you are spending no more than 9,000 rupees on rent if your monthly income is 30,000. If this amount is higher, you need to make changes. You need to go back, find a place where your rent is not going to go for more than 9,000. Remember, this is your biggest expense, and which is why you have to be the most careful about this. Over time, this could just slip away. The rest of it is just simple, the food you eat. Basically, you can decide how you control your budget and make sure that you're eating, you're cooking at home, obviously eating at home, and so you're saving money on food. Your phone bill, electricity bill, internet. There are so many different options now where you can get the cheapest rates from when you talk about phone and internet. Look for one that obviously works for you, but also you're not spending like thousands of rupees in just your phone and electricity and internet bills every month. And the next thing I want to talk about is your wants. Now, this is the most difficult part we spoke about at the start of the video. Usually, we know that 30% of our income needs to be to our wants, but here's where we end up spending more because these things attract us the most. We want to party, we want to take a vacation, we always like to eat outside, we want the next iPhone, we want fancy clothes to wear. So more often than not, you will see that this 30% looks more like 50-60%. In some cases, we even go beyond that and get a loan. Like you must have seen people getting mobile phones on EMI. Get a credit card, max out your credit card and buy fancy clothes, go to a party. If I'm telling you don't take a home loan, I obviously also am going to say don't take a credit card. You can take a credit card, you have to be smart about that, but don't take a personal loan for sure. And if you're taking a credit card, use it smartly, not to pay monthly EMIs every month. So this is where you have to be really, really sure about controlling it. And again, if you've got a long-term goal in mind, you know what you're sacrificing for. Okay, that means that you can't afford the next iPhone that comes out. And the next iPhone now, iPhones cost, 70, 80,000. You can only spare 9,000 per month for all your wants every time. That obviously means that you can't get that new iPhone. So don't get the iPhone. Maybe, stop doing some of these things. Don't party for a while. Don't eat out for a while. Don't vacation for a while. And whatever 9,000 you have for your wants, put that aside. And it adds up to 18,000 over 2 months. It adds up to 27,000, 36,000, 45,000. You add up a few months, this is going to go up and you can get a decent phone in 30, 40,000 rupees. So it's okay. You cannot afford the iPhone. Maybe get an iPhone which is a few years older. If you're really that much into Apple products, then don't get the latest iPhone. Get a phone that was released 2 years ago, and maybe you'll get a good deal at 40,000 rupees by saving up for a few months on your wants. So be careful about how you deal with your wants. It does not mean that you have to stop enjoying your life. Don't get me wrong. Like some people say, I want to go on a vacation, 9,000 rupees, but I want to go on a vacation to, UK, London. You obviously can't afford a vacation with 9,000 rupees to London. That's hardly anything. So it's okay. Don't take a few vacations for a few years. Add up that money, and when it builds up to a certain amount, maybe then you can. Maybe London may not be something that you can do now, but go somewhere within India. Right? There are so many places within India that you can go to have a good time. Ironically, I was traveling recently and was in London and Ireland for a while, and I just missed, but it was snowing on one of the days that I had just left, and it was cold. It was sub-zero degree Celsius, the coldest temperature that I have experienced. But funnily, all of this I could have experienced somewhere within India too. We have places where it snows, so I could have seen snow in India too. You see, the experience is what counts, right? And so you can get that with being smart about your vacation if you're really that much into traveling and going out and having a good time. So get smart about your wants. Make sure that you're using the money in the right way. If you have taken up a loan and buying any of these things, like maybe you bought a new phone on EMI, you've got some clothes, you went on a vacation, you party a lot, you use your credit card, well then for some time you've got to stop that and make sure the first thing you do is wipe off that debt. Whether it's a personal loan, whether it's a credit card, figure out a way to wipe that out. Maybe you could go on the internet and find out different ways of doing that. Maybe I'll create a video on that myself someday. But make sure that you wipe all of your debts. The best way to build wealth is making sure that you get rid of all your debt, all your bad debt. Right? The really, really rich ones will also tell you that there is also something called as good debt, but we're very, very far away from that. So There's no point even talking about it right now. And the last thing is save and invest. Save 20% of your income. More importantly, instead of saving that in your bank account, invest it into something. If you can get very diligent by putting aside 20% of your income every month, you could actually create something like an SIP and make sure that it goes into that investment automatically every month. Over a period of time, it will start to build, it will create an emergency fund for you, it will create some sort of a fallback for you at different times in your life whenever you need it. Like I said, we'll talk more about investment and how to do that smartly in the next video. But if you are able to set aside 20% instead of saving, you might as well invest. So this is the blueprint of what you can do to setting a budget. Like I said, it's not just a simple math, it's not just a simple habit, it's a way of life, it's a value that you have to develop, and it's very important to do that once you've set a financial goal for yourself. When you can see what your goal is, when you can see how long you've given yourself to get there, making some of these sacrifices is going to make a lot more sense to you in the present day. So don't just wake up and make a budget and try to stick to it. The first thing that you have to do is set a goal, a financial goal, so that when you set a budget and start making sacrifices, they start to make more and more sense to you. Okay, so I make videos on personal finance and personal growth. So if you like these kind of content, please like and please subscribe to my channel. And as I always keep saying, race only against yourself, because then you will always win. See you in the next video.